Why do some people remain calm when the world around them burns, while others collapse at the slightest pressure? It's not luck. It's not genetics. It's not some mystical force reserved for the chosen few. It's mental toughness, forged, not found. And here's the uncomfortable truth. Most people never build it. They scroll, they complain, they numb themselves with comfort and call it self-care. They avoid challenges and wonder why life keeps breaking them. But not you. Not if you're here. You're about to learn how to build a mind so strong and the world can't shake it, because it no longer bends, breaks, or begs for approval. This isn't about pretending nothing hurts. It's about mastering how you respond when it does. It's about discipline, not motivation. Control, not chaos. Unshakable focus, even when everything tries to knock you off course. If you've been feeling stuck, overwhelmed, constantly reacting instead of choosing, this is your moment. You don't need more hacks. You need a mental foundation, rooted in timeless Stoic philosophy, reinforced by modern mental strength training, and activated by daily actions that turn resilience into your default setting. Because true strength isn't loud, it's quiet, it's controlled, and it's terrifying to those who've never built it. So don't just watch this, use it. The first brick in your fortress starts now. And what comes next will challenge everything you thought you knew about your own limits. Let's build. 1. Mindset shift. Challenges are training. You weren't meant to float through life. You were built to fight through it. Ease doesn't shape character. Struggle does. The world won't hand you peace, power, or purpose. It will hand you chaos, doubt, and resistance. And what you do with that, what you see in it, determines everything. Weak minds treat pressure like punishment. Strong minds treat it like training. That shift alone separates those who grow from those who decay. Most people believe something's gone wrong the moment pain shows up. They ask, why me? They try to escape the discomfort, the setback, the silence, the rejection. But that mindset guarantees fragility. You can't escape life's pressure, but you can decide what it does to you. Either it crushes you, or it carves you into something sharper. Mental strength is not forged when things are easy. It's developed in the weight room of adversity. Every challenge, every failure, every unfair twist of fate, each one is a hidden gem for your soul. When you start seeing them as that, everything shifts. You stop taking things personally. You stop begging the world to be softer. You become harder instead. Not bitter, not numb, just stronger, wiser, unbreakable. That's where Stoicism cuts through the noise. Epictetus said, difficulties are things that show a person what they are. He didn't mean pretend the pain isn't real. He meant face it, feel it, and still rise. Stoic philosophy doesn't teach avoidance. It teaches acceptance and transformation. It teaches that your reaction is your responsibility, and that every situation, no matter how unfair, is an opportunity to train your inner fortress. When you adopt that mindset, struggle loses its sting. You stop fearing what might happen. You stop being shocked by life's blows, because now you expect the resistance and you welcome it. You show up not in fear, but in readiness. And that readiness gives you quiet power. There's something primal that awakens when you step willingly into discomfort, when you stop waiting for clarity and start moving through the fog. When you decide that the obstacle is not in the way, it is the way. That's not just a motivational line. It's a strategy for living, one that saved more people than comfort ever did. What most never understand is this: comfort is a trap. It rewards you today, but robs you tomorrow. It whispers, you've earned a break, when in truth, you've earned another rep. And the longer you stay soft, the harder life becomes. The more you chase ease, the more chaos you invite. And soon, even small setbacks feel like total collapse, because your mind was never trained for the weight. That's why you must stop waiting for motivation. You must stop expecting life to cooperate. It won't. But that's the point. Your peace must come not from circumstances, but from mastery. Mastery over your reactions, your patterns, your internal weather. That's where real strength lives. Not in pretending you're okay, but in knowing you will be, even if everything falls apart. The truth is, every challenge is a mirror. It shows you your level of discipline. It exposes your emotional control. It reveals the cracks in your mindset. That's not a problem. It's a gift. If you're brave enough to look and honest enough to act, the stronger your mind, the less you react, and the more you respond. That shift from reaction to response is where freedom begins. Building a strong mind doesn't mean you never fall. It means you never stay down. It means you train yourself to use everything, anger, fear, stress, not as excuses to escape, but as fuel to evolve. It means when something heavy hits, you don't run from it. You absorb it, examine it, and emerge with more clarity than before, not less. Look around. The world rewards those who can stay calm in the storm, who can carry pressure without crumbling, who walk through fire, not because they enjoy it, but because they refuse to be defined by what they avoid. So the next time you face a setback, don't ask, how do I escape this? Ask instead, how do I train with this? That's the shift. That's the moment your mind stops breaking and starts building. You weren't made for easy. You were made for evolution. And the resistance you feel today, that's the invitation. Step in, step up, and sharpen your edge. 2. Stop complaining, seeking comfort, making excuses. If you want to build a mind that can't be broken, you have to stop doing the things that keep breaking it. And that begins with killing 3 habits that silently sabotage your strength. Complaining, chasing comfort, and making excuses. These aren't just bad habits, they're systems of thought that rot your mindset from within. Every time you complain, you give your power away. Every time you choose comfort over challenge, you weaken your edge. And every time you make an excuse, you lie to yourself in a way that slowly convinces you that you're not in control. That's not harmless. That's mental suicide. Let's be real. Life is not going to rearrange itself to protect your feelings. The world doesn't bend to your moods, nor does it owe you convenience. What you feel in a moment does not excuse you from what must be done. And when your first instinct is to blame, to whine, or to rationalize why you're not moving forward, that's a signal that you're living from emotion, not clarity. Strength begins when you stop feeding the stories that keep you small. A weak mind finds comfort in complaining. It uses pain as a weapon, not to fight back, but to surrender. But the Stoics had no time for pity. Marcus Aurelius once said, "Reject your sense of injury and the injury itself disappears." That's not denial, that's discipline. When something happens, you have 2 choices. You can dwell on it and let it define you, or you can move through it and let it sharpen you. Complaining doesn't heal, it delays. It reopens the same wound every time you speak of it. It turns temporary pain into permanent identity. And what about comfort? We live in an age that worships it. Everything is built to be easier, faster, softer. But what most forget is this: comfort may feel good, but it builds nothing. You don't grow when everything goes your way. You don't evolve when you're unchallenged. In fact, the more you choose ease, the less prepared you are for reality. Discomfort is the gym of the soul. And if you avoid it, don't be surprised when life feels heavier than you can carry. Every powerful mind was sculpted through intentional discomfort. Cold mornings, hard conversations, silent discipline. The choice to say no when it's easier to say yes. That's the space where your real self is built. Discipline doesn't show up when you feel like it. It shows up when your feelings scream no, but your standard says yes. That's how mental resilience is formed, not by inspiration, but by repetition, by doing what's hard again and again until it becomes who you are. Then there are the excuses. Harmless, right? Wrong. Excuses are the most socially acceptable form of giving up. You say them enough times and they start to sound like facts. You convince yourself that you're stuck, that you're waiting for the right time, that you'll change when circumstances change. But the Stoic mindset says the opposite. Don't wait for life to get easier, get stronger. You are not the victim of your environment. You are the architect of your reaction. Epictetus reminded us, it's not things that disturb us, but our judgments about them. When you tell yourself you can't because of your past, your schedule, your stress, that's not truth, that's interpretation. And interpretations can be changed. Power begins when you stop believing everything you think and start questioning the voice that always chooses the easier path. Here's the reality. Complaining never fixed anything. Comfort never created greatness. Excuses never moved anyone forward. And deep down, you already know this. That's why it stings when you hear it. Because somewhere inside you know you're capable of more. You know there's a stronger version of you waiting beneath the noise. The version that doesn't beg for sympathy or chase relief, but that builds something real. The mind you're building cannot be trained with weakness. It needs friction. It needs honesty. It needs your full participation. No one's coming to do it for you. No one's going to hand you clarity or confidence. You have to earn them through resistance, through saying no to your old self, through showing up when everything inside you says quit. That's what it means to build a Stoic mindset. Not emotionless, but unshaken. Not blind, but focused. Not lucky, but deliberate. Every time you resist the urge to complain, you take back control. Every time you sit in discomfort and stay present, you strengthen your mental armor. And every time you silence an excuse before it becomes your reality, you plant a flag in your own mind that says, I am no longer available for weakness. So if you're tired of feeling like your emotions are running your life, if you're done being held hostage by your moods, your cravings, or your comfort zone, then this is the pivot. It starts now. Kill the excuses. Reject the comfort. Silence the complaint, because nothing strong ever came from softness, and nothing soft survives what's coming. You don't need a perfect plan. You need the courage to stop tolerating your own lies. The second you do, you'll realize the war was never out there. It was always in here. And now, it's yours to win. 3. Daily habits to build mental toughness. Mental toughness is not a moment, it's a system. It's not a speech you give yourself when things fall apart. It's what you've built, silently, daily, long before the chaos shows up. Strong minds don't appear by accident. They're trained through structure, through repetition, through habits that don't feel glamorous but forge unshakable control. Discipline isn't loud. It doesn't seek attention. It just shows up. Especially when you don't want to. Most people wait to feel ready. They wait for the motivation to arrive like a wave. But those waves are rare. The tide of real progress moves in small, deliberate actions. The kind of actions that are easy to skip but powerful when repeated. The foundation of mental resilience isn't found in intensity. It's built in consistency. What you do every day without applause becomes your edge when life demands your strength. That's why the first habit of a mentally tough person is simple. Start your day with discomfort. Not because you like pain, but because you refuse to let comfort own you. Cold showers, early alarms, hard physical movement, these aren't punishments. They are signals. They tell your nervous system who's in charge. When the first thing you do in the morning is something hard, you start the day from a position of power. Your body says no, you say yes. That is inner control in motion. But it doesn't stop there. A weak body weakens the mind. If you neglect physical discipline, you erode mental clarity. Stoic resilience is not separate from physical vitality. They reinforce each other. Training your body isn't just about strength, it's about obedience. It's about facing resistance, breathing through it, and finishing anyway. The gym is not just a place to build muscle. It's where your mind meets friction and chooses to push back. Meditation is another weapon in this arsenal, not because it makes you calm, but because it makes you aware. In a world that hijacks your attention, being able to sit with your thoughts without chasing them is an act of power. Meditation trains focus. It sharpens perception. It creates space between stimulus and response. And in that space, you choose who you are. You don't need hours, you need presence. Even 10 minutes a day rewires your mind for clarity under pressure. The third layer is what I call the deliberate challenge. Every day, do something that forces you to confront resistance. That might mean finishing a project you've delayed, saying no to something that feels good but serves nothing, making that hard phone call. These aren't random tasks. They're daily declarations. I don't run from what's uncomfortable, I run into it. Because if you don't deliberately choose hard things, life will choose them for you, and you won't be ready. There's a man I knew, Jack, mid-50s, construction worker turned coach. Not a flashy guy. Woke up at 4:30 every morning, ran in silence, no headphones, no selfies. When asked why, he said, because there's no negotiation. That's the habit, that's the rule. For years, he battled depression silently. Life crushed him, divorce, business loss, financial stress. But every morning he laced up, not because it healed everything, but because it reminded him he could keep going, that 1 mile at a time. When others fell into despair, he moved. And that movement became a rhythm. That rhythm became identity. He didn't call himself mentally strong, but everyone around him did. That's the hidden truth. Strong minds don't come from massive wins. They come from daily resistance, from doing things when you don't feel like it, from treating your rituals like laws, not suggestions. You don't rise under pressure unless you've trained in silence. And that training happens in your habits: what you eat, what you say, how you breathe, what you allow, and what you refuse. Marcus Aurelius didn't rule an empire through instinct. He ruled himself first. He journaled at dawn. He wrote not to impress, but to sharpen. He knew that every day brought chaos, so every day he built his defense, a defense made not of armor, but of clarity. That's what your habits give you, not just strength, but readiness. And readiness is peace, because mental clarity doesn't arrive when life gets easier. It emerges when you are consistent, regardless of chaos. And discipline isn't about punishment, it's about control. It's about saying, my emotions don't decide my actions. My actions train my emotions. That's a Stoic mindset in practice. You don't react, you respond. You don't chase highs, you build stability. So what does that look like today? Wake up without hitting snooze. Move your body, sit in silence. Write your thoughts, say no to something weak. Do one thing hard on purpose. Not for results, but for identity. Because every time you do, you're not just checking a box. You're proving something deeper. I'm not controlled by impulse. I lead myself. And if you can do that, today, tomorrow, every day, you'll wake up one morning and realize your habits are no longer something you do. They are who you are. And when that happens, the mind you've built won't flinch, won't break, won't beg. It will simply rise, because it's been trained to. 4. Control emotions under pressure. Emotions aren't the enemy. Your reaction is. You don't fall apart because you feel. You fall apart because you let the feeling lead. What breaks most people isn't the pressure. It's their inability to remain still inside it. The storm is rarely what destroys you. It's what you do when the storm hits that determines whether you drown or rise. You see, most people don't know how to pause. Something happens, they lash out. Words fly. Decisions are made. Bridges burn. Then regret moves in, again and again. But if you want to build mental toughness, you have to master emotional control. Not emotional suppression, control. The ability to feel without being owned. The space between trigger and response, that's where your power lives. And if you don't claim that space, the world will claim it for you. This isn't about pretending things don't bother you. Stoicism doesn't teach indifference. It teaches intentionality. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength." The goal isn't to eliminate emotion. It's to train it, to direct it, to convert it into clarity instead of chaos. That's what separates calm from collapse. And that's why emotional control is not optional. It's survival. The truth is, life will trigger you. People will disappoint you. Plans will fail. Fear will rise. That's normal. What matters is whether you let those emotions hijack your thinking. Anger doesn't ruin your life. What you say and do in anger does. Stress doesn't break you. What you neglect under stress does. The difference between a powerful mind and a reactive one lies in a few seconds of awareness. A deep breath, a conscious delay, a silent decision. I don't need to act on every feeling that visits me. Think of it like this. Your emotions are waves. Let them come. Let them crash. But don't build your house in them. Don't anchor your identity to them. Don't let temporary storms define permanent outcomes. The Stoics practiced this through premeditation, imagining the worst, not to panic, but to prepare. They knew that when you're prepared, you respond. When you're not, you react. And reaction is rarely wise. I once spoke with a former firefighter, a man who had walked through burning buildings more times than he could count. I asked him what made someone survive. His answer was simple. Calm buys you time. Panic takes it away. He wasn't fearless. He was trained. When chaos struck, he slowed down, breathed deeper, thought clearer. That mental space saved lives. And that kind of control doesn't show up in crisis unless it's been rehearsed in quiet. So how do you train for that? Start with the moment you feel heat. The next time you're about to snap, say nothing. Breathe through it. Count backward. Observe the emotion like an outsider. Don't identify with it. Study it. Ask yourself, what am I afraid of right now? What belief is being challenged? Most reactions are unspoken fears in disguise. When you expose the fear, you weaken its grip. Train this daily. When someone cuts you off in traffic, when a message triggers you, when someone disrespects your time, use it. Turn those moments into emotional weightlifting. Not everything deserves a response, and the most powerful thing you can say sometimes is nothing. Silence isn't weakness, it's strategy. It gives you room to respond with principle, not pride, to choose power, not impulse. Stoic strength is quiet. It doesn't need to prove itself. Epictetus said, "No man is free who is not master of himself." And mastery starts in the smallest moments. When you say no to the rising urge to explode, when you choose logic over reaction, when you hold the line, not for show, but because you've decided your peace is not for sale. And let's be honest, peace is power. Not the fake kind that comes from avoidance, the real kind that comes from knowing you can handle what comes. When your world shakes but your center doesn't move. That kind of strength intimidates people, because most have never seen it. They've seen rage, they've seen panic, but calm under pressure, that's rare. And rare is respected. So here's the shift. Stop being reactive. Start being responsible. The next time life throws something at you, breathe. Don't raise your voice, raise your awareness. Don't let the moment decide your identity. You decide what this moment gets from you. The calmest person in the room always leads it. Be that person, train like that person. And one day, you'll face the very thing that used to trigger you, and you'll feel the rise, but you won't move. Not out of fear, out of command. Because you've built a mind that responds like steel, even when everything else shakes. Embrace failure as a teacher. Failure is not the opposite of progress, it is the process. You don't become mentally strong by avoiding mistakes. You become strong by confronting them, analyzing them, and learning faster than the pain can sink you. Most people fear failure because they believe it defines them. But it doesn't. It reveals you. It shows you exactly where your mental walls are. And that clarity is priceless. The mind conditioned to fear failure becomes weak, defensive, and fragile. Every obstacle feels personal. Every mistake becomes shame. Every detour feels like a defeat. But when you shift your perception, failure becomes information. It becomes feedback. It becomes your teacher. The Stoics never avoided it. They used it. Seneca said, "Difficulties strengthen the mind as labor does the body." That's not metaphor, it's biology. Struggle forces adaptation. And without struggle, your mind atrophies. You want to become unshakable? Learn to welcome the fall. Not because it feels good, but because it stretches your awareness. Every time you fail, your illusions are shattered. The lies you told yourself are exposed. You see the gaps you couldn't see in comfort. And that exposure, though brutal, becomes the blueprint for your evolution. You don't get that from winning. You get that from falling and choosing to rise with more wisdom than before. What breaks most people is not the event, it's their interpretation. They assume failure means they're not enough, that they should quit, that something must be wrong. But failure doesn't mean stop, it means adjust, refocus, reinforce. It demands that you learn, that you tighten your system, that you eliminate what's weak. In Stoic practice, this is everything. You meet reality where it is. No drama, no denial, just clear perception followed by deliberate action. People chase perfection because they're afraid to be seen trying. They fear judgment more than they fear mediocrity. But here's the truth. Mental resilience has nothing to do with perfection. It has everything to do with endurance. The ability to continue, to stay grounded while refining, to show up again with more awareness and less ego. Ego fears failure. Discipline learns from it. And if you want to grow, your ego has to be stripped of its illusions. You will not master your emotions, your focus, or your life if you treat failure as a threat. You master them by treating failure as a mirror that shows you who you are under pressure. That kind of clarity creates freedom, because once you stop fearing the fall, you start flying on your own terms. You stop waiting for permission. You stop hiding behind potential. You begin acting with precision. This is why most high performers don't obsess over results. They obsess over systems, over daily execution, over small adjustments. They understand that failure doesn't come from trying. It comes from staying still, from protecting your pride while the world moves without you. If you're not failing, you're not pushing. If you're not uncomfortable, you're not improving. And if you're not improving, you're already declining. That's not negativity, that's precision. You want practical strength? Study your losses, write them down. Break them apart, find the habits, the choices, the thought patterns that led you there. Then rebuild. Refuse to make the same mistake twice. That's how Stoics lived, with radical self-honesty. Not shame, not self-pity, just data, clean, cold truth. And from that truth, they shaped lives of immense clarity and unbreakable presence. So stop hiding from your mistakes. Stop pretending they didn't happen. Stop protecting your comfort zone like it's your kingdom. Your real kingdom is built in fire, in friction, in falling flat and rising again with sharper eyes. The mind that can fail and keep moving is stronger than the one that never tries. Because strength isn't found in the illusion of flawlessness. It's forged in the courage to keep showing up scarred, but smarter. Failure doesn't mean you're broken. It means you've stepped outside the boundaries of who you used to be. And if you keep moving, if you keep refining, the person you're becoming won't fear failure. They'll use it like a blade that carves through ego, cuts through noise, and sharpens your identity until nothing fake remains. And that's when people start to notice. Not when you win, but when you fail, adapt, and keep coming. Not weaker, sharper, quieter, relentless. Because the strongest minds don't just rise. They rise with reason, they rise with clarity. They rise because they've fallen enough times to know failure isn't fatal, avoiding it is. 6. Develop an unshakable attitude. Life doesn't warn you before it hits. It doesn't ask if you're ready. It doesn't care how much you've already endured. One moment, you're calm. The next, you're staring into something you never saw coming. And in that instant, the only thing that matters is how steady you remain when everything else shifts. That's where attitude becomes your shield, or your downfall. An unshakable attitude is not about pretending nothing affects you. It's about choosing what gets access to your peace. It's about building a mindset that doesn't collapse every time the plan changes. When you develop this kind of inner power, people will notice, but they won't understand. Because most people live in reaction. They get triggered, they spiral, they blame, they treat emotions like facts and discomfort like injustice. But a Stoic mind doesn't do that. A Stoic mind is trained to remain still in chaos, not numb, but grounded. This attitude is everything because your external life will always be unstable. Things will go wrong, people will let you down, expectations will fail. That's reality. What defines you is not what happens, but how you frame what happens. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Choose not to be harmed, and you won't feel harmed." The message is brutal and liberating. You are not fragile because of the world. You are fragile because of your interpretation of it. And when you control the story, you reclaim your power. Most people live like leaves in the wind. They go where their emotions go. If something good happens, they're up. If something hard shows up, they're broken. But that's not strength. That's volatility. And you can't build a life or a legacy on volatility. You need inner gravity, a center that doesn't move just because the world does. That's not built through slogans. It's built through repeated mental discipline, through facing reality without complaint, through practicing detachment, not from people, but from outcomes. Detachment doesn't mean you don't care. It means you don't depend on things you can't control. It means you act with intention and release the rest. That's the Stoic mindset in action. You give your full effort, you take full responsibility, but you don't tie your peace to the result, because results are unstable, but your response can be unshakable. That's what makes you powerful. Not that you always win, but that you never lose yourself. This attitude also changes how you deal with pain. When your mind is weak, pain feels like punishment, but when your mind is trained, pain becomes perspective. It sharpens you. It exposes illusions. It pushes you back into the present, into what's real. The Stoics knew this. Epictetus reminded us, it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. That's more than philosophy. It's survival. Because if you collapse every time life doesn't go your way, you'll never evolve. You cannot control people. You cannot control timing. You cannot predict betrayal, illness, loss, or failure, but you can train how you meet them. That's what makes an unshakable attitude essential. Without it, every problem feels personal. Every obstacle feels like a verdict, but with it, nothing breaks you. Not because you're invincible, but because you've decided nothing will define you without your permission. The more you practice this mindset, the more silence becomes your strength. You stop explaining yourself to people who don't understand your growth. You stop arguing with those still ruled by emotion. You stop trying to convince the world you're okay, and you focus on being okay, regardless of what the world thinks. There's a quiet authority that comes with that. Not arrogance, conviction. And conviction doesn't shake when others doubt. It moves forward anyway. So how do you build it? You catch yourself in the moment of reaction. You pause, you breathe, you ask, is this worth my energy? Or is this a test of my control? You don't run from pressure. You stand in it, and you refine your stance. Day by day, response by response, you build a mental environment so solid that chaos stops scaring you. It still visits, but it doesn't stay, because it doesn't belong where peace is protected. That kind of presence takes practice. But it's available to anyone willing to take full ownership of their inner world. This is where real mental strength lives, not in performance, but in perception. Not in being the loudest, but in being the most still. Because when you can face uncertainty without folding, you stop being a slave to circumstance. You stop being ruled by noise, and you become exactly what this world fears most: grounded, focused, untouchable. Not because of what you control, but because of what no longer controls you. 7. Discipline over motivation. Motivation feels good, but it disappears fast. Discipline doesn't care how you feel, it only cares what you do. That's why the people you admire aren't driven by energy bursts. They're driven by systems. What makes them powerful isn't inspiration, it's consistency. They move forward when others freeze. They follow through when others flake. Not because they feel like it, but because they've made discipline their baseline, not their backup plan. Most people wait. They wait for a spark, a sign, a push. But life doesn't reward the ones who wait. It rewards the ones who act when nothing in them wants to. That's the quiet truth most ignore. And that's why motivation is dangerous. It tricks you into thinking action needs to feel good. It doesn't. Action needs to be aligned with your standards, not your mood. Discipline means showing up, especially when it's hard, especially when it's boring, especially when it's silent. That's when it counts most. The Stoics never spoke of motivation. They spoke of command, of structure, of daily effort without emotional negotiation. Marcus Aurelius didn't ask himself if he felt like ruling Rome. He asked what duty demanded. He reminded himself, at dawn, when you have trouble getting out of bed, tell yourself, I am rising to do the work of a human being. That's not poetic. That's practical. And that's the voice of someone who understood that inner resistance is just noise, and duty is louder. When you live by discipline, you don't need ideal conditions. You create results under any condition. That's the mindset of a mentally strong person. They don't rise and fall with motivation. They rise because they've trained their mind to act without it. They've replaced emotional dependency with behavioral commitment. You don't have to love the work. You just have to love who you become because of it. That's the difference. And here's the truth most avoid. Feelings are unreliable. They lie. They change. They swing from high to low without notice. But your actions? They build evidence. They shape identity. Every time you keep your word to yourself, even in discomfort, you hardwire a belief. I am the kind of person who follows through. And that belief will carry you through the storms that motivation can't touch. Building discipline starts small. It's not about extreme willpower, it's about clarity. What matters? What's non-negotiable? You don't need to do everything, you need to do the right things repeatedly. That's how a daily habit becomes identity. It's why the Stoics valued routine, ritual, repetition. Because they knew your life doesn't rise to the level of your goals. It falls to the level of your habits. If your goal is to become mentally unbreakable, stop asking how to feel more motivated. Start asking how to build systems that survive your weakest days. Wake up at the same time. Train at the same time. Write, reflect, move. Build a rhythm that removes choice from the equation. When the alarm goes off, it's not a question. It's a command. Not because it's rigid, but because freedom is built on structure. A wild mind will never produce a steady life. And yes, it will get hard. Discipline doesn't erase difficulty. It arms you for it. Some mornings you'll want to quit. Some evenings you'll want to skip the hard thing. That's where most people retreat, but that's the moment you separate. Because if you only work when it's easy, you'll never grow. But if you act when it's hard, repeatedly, everything changes. Slowly, quietly, powerfully. You become the type of person who finishes, who executes, who leads, not with noise, but with example. There's no shortcut here. No dopamine rush, no applause, just the truth. If you want to be respected, start by respecting your own word. Not once. Every day. Especially on the days you want to break the promise. Those are the days that define you. Those are the days when you either build a pattern or you break it. So if you're tired of starting over, stop quitting. If you're tired of waiting to feel ready, act before you are. You don't need hype. You need habits. You don't need more motivation. You need more reps. What makes you strong isn't what you do once, it's what you do always. And once discipline becomes who you are, motivation becomes irrelevant. Because now you move with or without it. Because now you've built a mind that no excuse can talk out of action. And that kind of mind, it doesn't need to feel strong. It simply is. 8. Take action or stay stuck. You don't need more time. You don't need more advice. You don't need another video. What you need is movement, direction, action. Every breakthrough you're looking for is waiting behind the wall of hesitation you keep rebuilding every day. And if you don't move now, you're not stuck, you're staying. That's the difference most never see. They confuse stillness with limitation, but stillness by choice is power. Stillness by fear is paralysis. Mental strength is not measured by how much you know. It's measured by how fast you act on what you know. You already know enough. You've heard the podcasts, read the quotes, bookmarked the mindset tips, but knowledge without execution is nothing more than a distraction dressed up as growth. And the longer you stay in consumption mode, the harder it becomes to trust yourself when it's time to move. Action is clarity. Thought alone is fog. The mind will overthink until it convinces you to play safe. It will tell you to wait, to refine more, to gather more confidence. But confidence isn't something you find. It's something you build through effort, through failing forward, through doing what scares you when comfort begs you to delay. The Stoics understood this deeply. Seneca wrote, "While we wait for life, life passes." And that's exactly what happens when you let hesitation become habit. Every time you postpone action, you train your brain to believe delay is safety. But it's not. It's self-betrayal. Because deep down, you know what needs to be done. And every day you avoid it, your self-respect erodes a little more. You start negotiating with your potential. You justify smallness. And eventually, you stop trusting your own voice. That's how mental weakness grows, not from lack of knowledge, but from repeated inaction. Action is how you reclaim that voice. Not perfect action, not loud action, just real, honest movement in the direction of who you said you wanted to become. It doesn't need to be a leap. A step is enough. The gym session you don't want to do, the message you've been avoiding, the habit you said you'd start. These small moves build massive momentum, not because they're dramatic, but because they're decisions. And decisions are how you rewrite your identity. When you act, even imperfectly, you create evidence. And that evidence silences doubt. Not overnight, but consistently. Doubt feeds on inaction. Fear grows in the pause. But once you begin, even clumsily, you shift your focus from fear to effort. And where focus goes, strength follows. Because the most dangerous thing is not making the wrong move. It's standing still while calling it patience. Mental toughness demands that you stop waiting for perfect. Perfection is the enemy of execution, and execution is the birthplace of strength. Every strong mind you admire was forged in motion, not in theory. They didn't wait for guarantees. They moved with uncertainty. They failed, adjusted, and moved again. They trusted the process more than their emotions. And that's what made them untouchable. Not that they always knew the outcome, but that they never let the unknown stop them. You are not overwhelmed because you have too much to do. You're overwhelmed because you haven't started. When the mind is idle, problems grow. But when you act, the mind aligns with your direction. Problems shrink. Doubt fades. Focus sharpens. That's the power of motion. And the mind, like the body, needs resistance to grow. You won't get stronger reading about discipline. You'll get stronger walking into discomfort and choosing to do what's hard anyway. The Stoic mindset is built on this principle. Take full ownership of what's in your control and release the rest. And what's always in your control? Your effort, your next move, not the outcome, not the timing, just your action. Epictetus reminded us, first say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do. It's that simple. Say it, then do it. No detour, no second guess. So what's left now is choice, not chance, choice. Stay where you are or move. Wait for another sign, or become the signal. You don't need permission to start. You just need the courage to stop pretending tomorrow will magically fix what you've avoided today. No one's coming. No wave of motivation is arriving. It's just you and this moment. And what you do with it will either reinforce who you've been or unlock who you could become. So start. Stumble forward. Break the loop. Build the evidence, because every action you take tells your mind, we don't live in fear anymore. And when your actions speak louder than your doubts, you won't need motivation, you'll have momentum. Strength is not given. It is trained. Through the discipline you practice in silence, through the emotions you learn to master, through the challenges you choose to face rather than flee. What you've just heard is not a theory, it's a call to action. A call to build a mind that does not waver under pressure. A mindset that remains focused when the world gets loud. A character that thrives in stillness when others break under noise. We've walked through the path of mental resilience, from shifting how you see failure, to controlling emotions, to rejecting comfort and complaint, and building habits of discipline that hardwire strength into your identity. These are not motivational lines. They are tools. Tools that must be used, not admired. Knowing them is not enough. Applying them is what transforms you. The Stoics didn't just survive hard times, they were shaped by them. They trained daily. They reflected deeply, and most of all, they lived with intention. That's your invitation now. Begin each day with awareness. Step into discomfort on purpose. Sit with silence. Move with meaning. And most importantly, stay consistent, especially when you don't feel like it. That is how inner power becomes permanent. So don't let this be just another video you scroll past. Let it be a marker, a shift, a decision to stop living from emotion and start leading from principle. Train your mind the way you train your body. Feed it with clarity, sharpen it with truth, and reinforce it with daily action. And as you do, share your journey. Tell us in the comments, where are you struggling to stay strong? Where are you reclaiming control? Let this be a space for growth, for real stories, for real change. Because that's how we build, not just alone, but together.